Hello. Welcome back to Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on the world of fundraising to share the raw, the real, and unfiltered stories that shape our sector. I'm your host, Rochelle Jerry, and today's episode is a heartfelt, warm story. It's one that will stay with you long after it ends. We're diving into the most heartwarming donor story you'll ever hear. And trust me, it is more than just a feel-good tale of an accidental relationship. It's a masterclass in the power of authentic relationship and how that transforms you, your organization, and your team. My guest today is Roger D. Ali, a seasoned fundraising executive, administrator, and consultant with over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. Roger's leadership and commitment to the profession are exemplified by his recent election as chair of the Association of Fundraising Professionals Global Association, a testament to his deep dedication to advancing our field. As a major gift strategist, Roger has led teams in comprehensive fundraising and marketing programs that have raised over $150 million, including several capital and endowment campaigns. His impressive career includes serving as president and CEO of Niagara Health Foundation, vice president development at Hamilton Health Sciences Foundation, and executive director of the Bishop Strachan School Foundation. Today, as an independent consultant and senior associate with S. Sutton and Associates, Inc., Roger specializes in governance, major gifts, and campaign strategy and staff coaching, empowering organizations to achieve transformational results. But today, he's not here to talk about numbers or titles. He's here to share a donor story that changed everything. And we thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'm so honored that I could be part of this podcast. And, when you asked me to think about what I would like to share, I thought about the amazing donors that came into my life throughout the, I would say, meaningful jobs that I've had. And this one stands out time and time again during my time at Hamilton Health Sciences Foundation, where I was the vice president. And I was in that job for the longest, for 9 years, which in many disciplines is unheard of. But I truly loved the relationships that I had with donors in particular. So, this one that I will share with you as we go back and forth is about a couple who was a patient, a grateful donor that I didn't know, didn't come, wasn't on my radar, but they came into the foundation office. So that's really how the relationship started, by that first point of contact after one of their treatments that the individual had. The donor was just grateful at the end of the day.
That's wonderful. So those are the best relationships, right? The ones that happen by accident. Those are the ones I truly enjoy. So what made this donor story stand out from others that you've encountered over, your history of working as a fundraiser?
There are two things, the relationship that we developed over time. So, we quickly formed a bond. So I think that was the first thing that stood out for me. And it was over a 5+ year relationship. So the bond. The second was the openness of the conversations. So, that what I would call the deep listening, and it was outside of kind of your traditional, okay, I'll present a proposal after we've cultivated the relationship, and we'll, once the ask is made, we'll sort of wait and see. So it was very, very much organic, and it was based on a deep level of trust. So I think those are the pieces for me that stand out amongst other donors that I had really great relationships as well. But I think it was more formal. When I think of cultivating donor relationships, I think of the arts and science side of things, and I think this one definitely was, based on that sort of side of relationships and developing over time. And unfiltered, as we started this podcast, you used the word unfiltered. It was very natural, and I felt while I was being a fundraising professional, I was also being natural and being my true self in this particular relationship.
That's awesome. I love how you mentioned that they were a couple. A lot of times, we have to remember to include the family in donor giving, right? And establish that long term relationship. And people will see. I know in my own life, my daughter and my husband sees that what I'm passionate about, they are also passionate about, or knows that I care about it, and will continue or ask me questions about the giving. What are you doing and how are you doing it? How are we budgeting for this? Make sure it's a family conversation. And so, in thinking about after the treatment, right? And that's passionate, that's emotional giving. So how did their gift, ripple beyond the transaction, or the impact of what you were doing? How did you bring that into your everyday life as you were talking to other donors? Because emotional giving impacts us. So how does that change your perspective on why people give?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and you use the word couple because every time I had conversations with them, and even though, let's say I'll use the word Mr. C as the
Mm-hmm.
donor patient, his wife was always there. So I always felt like they were both uh, the donors and that they were making the decision jointly. A couple of things I'll share kind of to anchor and answer your question. The first point of contact was one where after we developed sort of an initial relationship and they made that first gift, it was truly where I started visits and got to know them. But more importantly, what stood out for me was the keen desire to make a difference, not wanting recognition or naming opportunity, but also very keen in listening to the challenges that the hospital was facing at that point in time. And it actually gave me motivation, or the, I would say, confidence that I could share with other donors how interested the patient was in improving healthcare. So that really was
Mm-hmm.
an important piece for me. And I think the second was that I felt comfortable, and this is important for your viewers, fundraisers who think, well, is there like a pause when you ask for a gift? But this was a little bit outside of the norm, because after their first gift was made, and it was a fairly large six-figure gift, shortly after, providing that thank you and stewardship, there was an opportunity to engage again. And I have to say that my healthcare professionals played a role. So the narrative and the story as it unfolded helped me, and I was able to share that. I was in part of when I'm speaking with other donors and even our staff as well, the importance of what I would call the deep listening and then sharing that story back. That was really an important element to motivate other donors as well. And initially, they were hesitant about it. And while I was careful how much I was sharing, I think the beauty about it is that their commitment and just what I would call um, passion to make a difference in the community was very evident. Giving back, because they often reminded me that they came from humble beginnings, which was absolutely
Mm-hmm.
motivating for me to see. That despite the wealth and despite the affluence, they were just real people who wanted to make a difference, and that was a big part of what I shared.
That's amazing. I love that they would share additional personal information. Did you learn anything else about them personally outside of philanthropy that made their generosity even more meaningful?
Yeah, a lot of our conversations every time I visited was about their lives. I mean, we would spend an hour getting to know each other. I was comfortable sharing, they had a property in the US, and I was at the time thinking about getting a second property, which so happened to be right in the same area in Naples. So there was that sort of banter, and we talked about wine because we had an appreciation for that as well. So a lot of it was at the end of the day. It's almost like, I don't want to say they were a friend, but it felt like those conversations were friendly and trusting, and it
Yeah,
allowed to engage in deeper conversations about philanthropy and the importance of what they were thinking in terms of giving and how that would make a difference in the lives of other patients. And I think that is really the beauty about it. There was a deep sense of I think trust that was built over time, and I think that allowed us to get to know each other.
that's awesome. I love hearing stories like this because they influence every way that you work. So, did you have a team or board members that you work with? How does relationships like this help steward your relationships with staff and your board?
They say it takes a village to raise a child. And I think many times when, you have these donor relationships,
Yeah.
and the multiple transformational gifts that came through, I didn't do it alone. And yes, I was, the lead fundraiser, but I was very mindful of what is the role of the president of the hospital. So, I would give him that nudge and say, I'd like you to write this thank you card for the couple. And oh, by the way, they're going to be in. He's going to be in for treatment. So I think it would be great if you pop by and say hello. And then the lead
Yes.
oncologist was my fundraising partner. And that was one of the amazing things about working in that environment, to have oncologists who care beyond their role. So we would meet and talk about the fundraising strategy. So that was another team member, and then my A team. Of all my teams I worked with, I often said, "You guys are my A team," and you know the senior development officer who helped with the proposal, the stewardship, the personalization of pieces, the events that we invited the couple to, was all the team, not just me. And then our board volunteers who were aware of the important relationship that was being cultivated, and to advise them of when the couple is at an event, what should you say, how should you greet them. So my goodness, there's so many aspects. It's that the spokes of the wheel, and all those
Yes.
pieces coming together. So that certainly made a huge difference. But it was something for me that I would say is a natural part of cultivating, these major and transformational donor relationships. That you think about the audiences and you think about those points of contact as you travel through the journey with this, in this case, with this amazing couple.
Yeah. That's awesome. And that's a great example of genuinely showing appreciation and showing the donor that they are a part of the mission and not just thanked and not just a part of a scheduled acknowledgement, right? Like their journey is passionate and emotional, and they want to be a part of, what the organization is doing. And that resonates with the grassroots nonprofits, It resonates with large nonprofits, nonprofit associations, professional development organizations. So approaching your engagement as a part of inspiration and genuinely being seen with your donor is a critical part of the fundraising journey. It's a critical part of the story. These are real people with real stories of things that are happening in their life and causes. So treat it that way, right? So how do we balance, with these powerful stories and also respecting their privacy and dignity and authenticity because you are sharing this with teams and board members. So, how do we balance that as professionals?
There's definitely a fine balance, and I think as fundraising professionals, you use the tools you have in terms of what you share, and to be able to underscore the importance of confidentiality and ethical fundraising and the way we approach that. I always look at it from the point of view that who am I speaking with about the donor and what types of information would I share? So, when I referenced what the hospital president and how he was involved, there are certain bits of information that he had that was more than perhaps a board volunteer who I was more careful about the degree to which I was describing the gift, because when I referenced the transformational gift, the major, like, that point was a $5 million gift, and that level of detail, I was careful of sharing. Certainly, staff had more access to the information, but I think at the end of the day, I also connected with the couple, and we talked about, for example, their naming and the recognition, which they did not want, nothing at all. But what I said was, you can be a catalyst to inspire others in the community, but also it's your legacy of giving, and think of your family and that name, that family name, and what that means. And yes, the amount would be public and your story would be public, but we can we can share the narrative to the degree to which you're comfortable. So again, I was moving and shifting various pieces of information depending on who and what they need to know. And I always, as a fundraiser, think about what's the minimum I need to share, and if more is needed, then I would navigate through what that more means.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, what advice, thinking about, as fundraisers move to, more major gift strategies or planned gift strategies in lieu of a lot of the decrease in grant funding that's happening around the country, how would you suggest that fundraisers honor stories like this in an ethical way?
Yeah, I mean, as fundraisers, we have a lot of pressure to deliver and to deliver big results. And I think the important piece to remember is that these are human beings with personal lives, and in the story I'm sharing, was very impacted by a health situation that was, challenging, and at times, really pulled the entire family together to support the individual. So I think what I would say to your audience is that you have to listen deeply, and you also have to be patient, because I didn't know that first gift would have led to four other gifts that
Mhm.
were six and seven figure gifts
Yeah.
over the course of the 5+ years. But what my experience taught me was to focus on building the relationship, and always to have that level of authenticity. So while I was aware of their interest, I was also patient and I waited to the degree to which they were ready to make the next gift. So while we're pressured and funding is tight and grants are disappearing, we also have to know that major gift donors give, and I believe that the gift is a desire to make a difference in the organization's mission. So how do we balance both? And I think patience and active listening are the two things that I always remind myself, Roger, you need to have even in these challenging times.
Yes. So if you could say one thing directly to that donor today, what would it be?
Thank you. it Thank you for making such a difference. Unfortunately, Mr. C has passed since we
Mhm.
had those amazing gifts. But thank you for your willingness to listen and to impact the hospital in such a positive way.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. It
Yeah.
it warms the cockles of my heart every time I tell this story, because it has certainly stood out in the connection. And for me, it's about thank you. Like, you cannot thank individuals like this, these special individuals, enough. There's so much more
Yeah.
you can do, but it's really about thanking from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for sharing how that story has stayed with you, all of these years. And, what do you hope listeners take away from, the true heart of fundraising, from hearing how you created this relationship and, genuinely maintained it over time?
Yeah, as fundraisers, there's the arts and science of the job, and that we have a portfolio of prospects, and we have to develop those relationships. But what I hope fundraisers would take away from this is the importance of being your true authentic self as a fundraiser, and that you take the time to learn about your donors, in particular the donors that you want to cultivate these I would say important relationships, and believe and trust the process as it's going through. It may not follow an A to Z path, but I think that is part of it. So I think for me, that would be my message to your audience: to just be patient and focused, because I've always been very focused on a handful. Like, I pick about 25 to 30 relationships,
Yeah.
and I can tell you every one of those relationships, I had 3 and 4 multiple transformational gifts that were made over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So in closing, I have some lighthearted
Okay.
questions for you, Roger, along with some rapid fire questions. All right. So, what is a fundraising best practice you secretly think is a total myth?
Everyone says, like, stewardship is kind of that. It's that you have to steward donors well, and I think really it's more about that overarching piece of how a thank you and a fulfillment and the ongoing reporting is all intertwined.
Yeah. 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 What's your biggest fundraising pet peeve?
Oh my goodness. The dear friend letter, or dear friend sort of card. I am not your friend. Call me by name, please.
Okay. What's your favorite fundraising tool? And remember, this is the truth here, so you don't have to be, safe. You can say what you think is a really good tool, and I'm sure someone else will agree with you.
I love using the prospect tab in Razor's Edge,
Hmm.
because my practice has focused over major gifts and transformational giving, and I just love using the prospect tab in Razor's Edge.
Awesome. What's your most inspiring? Oh, wait. dream budget? What's your, like, if you could come up with your dream fundraising budget, what would it be?
Well, yeah, $1 billion. I would love to have a budget of $1 billion. I'm dreaming. I am
Yeah,
dreaming. So
you're dreaming.
I could
That,
change the world. I could have the amazing team, AI,
yeah,
processes in place,
yeah.
all of it.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, thank you, Roger. I have appreciated hearing your heartfelt story. I appreciate your time and all the work you are doing in the sector for nonprofits and fundraisers. I appreciate you. And this is episode 2, the most heartwarming donor story you're ever hear in Fundraising Confessions, the truth about the profession. And we'll let Roger close us out.
Thank you, Rochelle, for this opportunity. And I trust that the story I shared would motivate others and think about the relationships that you're developing over the course of your fundraising journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, to our listeners, I hope today's conversation gave you more than just inspiration. I hope it reaffirmed the heart at the center of our profession. Fundraising is more than just metrics and moves management. It's about people, purpose, and stories that shape the world, even those accidental, meaningful relationships. If you enjoyed this episode of Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. There's a powerful newsletter titled Dear CEOs, Get Off the Struggle Bus. Subscribe today so that we can have genuine conversations on how to help you manage all the things you need. Facebook and Instagram at Consult with Jerry to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to YouTube for these podcast episodes. Until next time, keep doing good, keep telling the truth, and keep building relationships that matter. I'm Rochelle Jerry, and I'll see you on the next episode.